Good morning, everybody. Today is the 23rd of April. I mentioned about my class ring yesterday. Still got it. Still doesn't fit on there. It fits on the pinky finger. But every once in a while, I still try it on. Thank you for joining us today. Yesterday, I talked about Moses as a pivotal player. Today, I want to talk about somebody else that I met some years ago, and it had to do with the old neighborhood in Fishtown. And on Saturday morning, we run the AA meeting for the local people in recovery. And the meeting's over about 11 o'clock. About 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang at the rectory. I opened the door, and there was a guy standing there, and his name was Stanley. Stanley says to me, "How you doing there, Father Francis?" I said, "Stan, I'm doing all right." I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Doing all right. I want to ask you a question." I said, "Yeah, what's your question?" He said, "If I die, will you bury me?" I said, "Sure, you planning on dying?" He chuckled. He said, "As a matter of fact, I am. I have about 6 weeks to live. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it's going to get me." I said, "You're kidding me. You're a picture of health." He's squinching a tennis ball, healthy looking guy, thin, everything else. He said, "Yeah," he said, "it's going to get me." I said, "Stan, that's not a problem to give you a funeral." So Stan eventually did die. Stan had been in the fire department for about 35 years. Because of his addiction to alcohol, his family had just left him alone. Didn't bother him at all. His kids, everything else. And the only thing he had was the fire department. That had become his new adopted family. Anyhow, probably 10, 12 years prior to that, Stanley used to do some amateur boxing. And he thought to himself, maybe what I could do is to try to help some of the young thugs in the neighborhood save their life a little bit if I could have them come to the gym, and I'll teach them how to train, how to box, and how to take care of themselves for anything they run in on the street. So he'd go to the gym when he wasn't working on a firehouse, and he would have these young kids come. He eventually got the nickname Stan the Cut Man, because what he would do is if kids got beat up or cut, he would always use that little pencil and clean them up and bind up their wounds and tell them how to hold their hands, all the other business. So his nickname was Stan the Cut Man. Anyhow, 6 weeks later, Stan died. His funeral took place at Holy Name. Holy Name holds about 300 people. His ashes were in the front of the church for viewing, and the fire department has an award for any firefighter that saves a child from a burning building. It's like the Heisman Trophy of fire department. Stan had two of them. Two of those trophies. Two of them. There wasn't a dry eye at that funeral. 300 people, the fire department. We made our way to the local cemetery, Palmer, and they put his ashes on the fire truck, and the engines were blaring, and everybody else just kind of walked down behind the fire engine. And the funeral was complete. The following year, the anniversary of his death, I got a call from some of the EMTs, and they wanted to have a wreath-laying ceremony at Stan's grave. So I met them at Palmer, and we did this little ceremony. And additionally, what grew out of that was the fire guys put together this tournament, a one-day tournament, one whole day, at the local playground. And it was a softball, half-ball, pickleball tournament. Maybe 200 people show up, and they would show up with their beach chairs and their coolers with refreshment in it and everything else. Spend the whole day, have music, a band, all the other business. Any of the money's raised would go to the gym that Stanley worked at. He was indeed a pivotal player. And his holy card, however, is interesting. There's a copy of it. I kept it. It was in 2008. He died, dead 12 years. And that's a picture of him. He was coming out of maybe a burning building or something. His face has soot and all the other business. But his hand is holding a buckle on his fire coat, his fire prevention coat. And it's one of those little finger rosary beads. Those ones you kind of stick on your finger, and you finger the 10 Hail Marys, and that's got the cross on it. He had two of them. One on this buckle and one on a collar. And I thought to myself, he had a great devotion to Mary, the mother of Jesus. And she was really his spiritual mother, and the one that saved him from the issues of life that he was in and gave him a purpose. Stan was indeed a pivotal player. His memory, even to this day, after all these years, is still recounted, especially by a lot of the old folks in Fishtown that remember Stan. I hope one day, with God's grace and mercy, myself to be in his presence again, and we can share some stories about those days at the gym, his time with the fire department, because he was indeed a pivotal player. He made a difference in the lives of other people because he gave people a purpose to live their life, and that purpose was always in goodness. May God indeed grant mercy to his soul, and may God's grace help you and me in our own journey of life to be so humble as to be known as a pivotal player that leads people to live a life of goodness and grace. Good to see all of you. We'll look for you tomorrow. God bless you all.